Welcome to the Impossible Talk podcast. The topic that we're going to be discussing today is around foster care. You both have experience, including me being in the foster care system. So thank you for coming onto this platform to speak about your experiences and to raise awareness. So what I would like us to do is just to introduce ourselves. So let's start with Alex. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. First time around doing all this stuff. My name's Alex, 32. Currently living in Wiltshire at the moment. What else would you like to know about?
Okay. Thank you, Alex. Jodie?
My name's Jodie. I'm 33, living in Bedford, and yeah.
Okay. So I'm just going to get straight in with the questions. So, Jodie, let's start with you. How old was you when you went into care, and how long did you remain in the system for?
So I believe I was about 2, 3, and I stayed in the system till I was 8, 9. I was then adopted, so I was quite lucky that I was fostered with my sister. So we went through the system together, and yeah, we got adopted together. Initially, we were sort of going from mum to the foster carer for sort of respite and things like that. But then it sort of progressed into foster care and then adoption.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing, Jodie. Alex?
Quite a similar age, to be fair. I was a little bit older. I went into care with my older sister at the age of 5 years old. I stayed in care until I joined the army at 16 years old. Same as my sister, I think she stayed in care until she was 16. We were in care together for a couple of years, but we got split up due to me and my move-ins and all that stuff. So we got split apart. I wasn't lucky enough to be adopted though. So I spent nearly all of my foster care moving from care home, respite, foster carers, secure units, brief spells in and out of jail cells and stuff like that due to raisins. Spent a little bit longer, but I didn't go in as early as Jodie.
Okay, thank you, Alex. I was 12 years old when I joined the foster care system, and I remained there till I was 18. And then I was given a property once I left because I was on a full order care. So I'm going to move on to the next question. So what was your first thoughts about going into care? What was going through your mind, if you can recall that?
My first thoughts, well, I was 5, so my only thoughts was I want to meet my mum. I want to see my mum again. My dad wasn't around from birth. My only thought was I want to see my mum again. I never had no visitations, no contacts. I was literally from 5 years old down to a letter. So my only thought ever throughout the entire time of foster was I want to see my mum.
Yeah. Thank you, Alex. Jodie?
I do remember sort of, well, not from 2, but I do remember at 4, which was sort of like the last stint, 3, 4, when we were with mum, being absolutely terrified because my mum was a paranoid schizophrenic and she believed that people were taking us and they were going to kill us, and unfortunately she would tell us that. So I just remember being absolutely terrified sitting in the back of this police car, and then terrified for my sister because of how my mum was. I was very much her mum, even from like a very young age, and I just remember just wanting to mother her the whole time. And then obviously similarly to Alex, I know my mum was ill, but I just wanted my mum.
Yeah. I guess you both were so young at the time as well, wasn't it? So all your emotions are so heightened at the time. I think for me, I was an asylum seeker, so I was new to the country. I had only been into the country for about 3 years prior to that. So I didn't know that there was foster care system at all. I didn't understand what that stood for. So it's very confusing. I didn't really know initially how to take it. I was told the first day I was put in with foster carers that I would go home the next day, which of course didn't happen because I remained in care until I was 18. But I think about a year into me being in a foster placement, I kind of put one and two together and said, you know, I don't think I'm going to be leaving anytime soon. So what I also want to find out is what kind of negative experiences did you have in care? Did you have any negative experiences or?
I'd say like a good chunk of my whole foster thing was negative. I was the new foster kid in new schools, new places. So I got bullied horrendously. So I was constantly fighting. And care homes, which are basically a group of kids that's in care, all shoved into one building that's managed by a bunch of other carers. I've gone through it all. Absolutely quite a violent childhood due to being fostered.
Would you say, sorry, go on, Alex.
No, carry on.
Would you say that change, did it impact you, that change of going into a children's home?
It wasn't really a change because when I was so young, I didn't really know any better except I'm not with my mum. And then the kids got wind of me being fostered and not with my mum, and then they would bully. I would get severe beatings and just for being the odd one out, and it didn't help being ginger as well. That just toppled on top of it, and where I didn't really have much of a childhood to think allowed to try and focus on sports or playthings and toys or electronics. My mind was literally stuck on wanting my mum, so I didn't get to grow up on a normal childhood in any way, shape, or form. Yeah, I've encountered almost all the kind of problems you generally hear about in care, and then times it by 10 because of the ginger factor. It's kind of stupid, really.
Thank you for sharing, Alex. Jodie, what about you?
I had some good foster carers, and we had some awful foster carers, similarly to Alex. I wasn't so much physically abused, like hitting, but I think for me the hardest one was sort of the psychological, emotional abuse. It was some of the things that they would do is just bizarre. I'll be honest with you, I used to have night terrors and I used to wet the bed and they would strip me and put me in the street in a nappy at 7 and I had nowhere to go. Just yeah, it's very, why you would do that to anybody, let alone a child, is just whatever. But yeah.
I think one of the toughest parts about being a foster child is knowing that you're fostered, and the carers, whether you're in an actual foster placement or a care home, you're always tracked differently. If you're with kids or singles, you're always tracked differently and that doesn't help anyone's mental state for the future being in foster, because they know they're different. They're already treated different. So
what do you think you do about that? In terms of that, I mean, you know, foster care system is going to exist, but what can professionals do to equip maybe other children who in dealing with young people being in foster care to prevent bullying or to prevent a negative experience from happening?
They can't.
You can't.
It's an almost impossibility. You're asking social services, who are already, in my experience, absolutely dreadful. I've had 2 good foster social workers in my entire time of being in foster care. That's it for a total of about 3 years for the two of them combined. All the rest of the years, they were absolutely dreadful. So
When
they
you're
can't.
a child, sorry, I keep butting in. I think when you're a child, I was very aware of who was there to support me and care for me and who wasn't. And I was very aware who was there for the money and who wasn't. And if I was aware at that age, the social services have no excuse. I mean, they say they vet these people. No, you don't. I think me and my sister's money paid for somebody's house extension at one point. All of our belongings were put outside in the rain. I was very aware that that was the reason I was there. There was no other reason to it. Yeah, I think you are aware, and people do treat you differently.
I think the money side of things, I wasn't really aware until I hit late teenager side of life. That was because the last foster carers that I was with actually stayed with them the longest, over like 2-3 years. They're actually the best ones for me because they were hard on me and they didn't let me get away with a lot.
Yeah.
But they also tried ish to treat me like one of their children. I say ish because they were a lot harder on me because of all the shit that I went through and the problems that I had, probably still have, because of the childhood that I went through. So they are, even now, they still treat me differently. I still speak to those foster carers, but they still talk to me differently. They still treat me differently compared to the other children that they have. I see it, I notice it. I don't say anything about it because I know I'm different to everyone else.
I think one of the things that one of my negative experiences was I moved around so much, just like, you know, both of you did. And by the time I had left care, I think I'd been into like 16, 17 different placements. And I think the carers were quickly to give up on me. But because it was such a new change for me, I think what I needed then was maybe support from counseling or any other professional that would have really explained that change and tried to help me to normalize that or to prepare me. But I think because I didn't have that, it really showed in my behavior because I was a teenager. I was going through my adolescence stages as well.
I don't think it made much of a difference because I got shoved with a whole load of mental health people, a whole load of it throughout the childhood as well. And the page that I'm creating is a page just for a group, so people that's been in foster care or currently in it have people that can truly understand what it's like going through it, because all the professionals and stuff that I've been to, they may understand human minds and emotions, all that, but they don't understand what it's like being in that situation. And it's the understanding side that I think is more needed, especially when it comes to foster care, because there is so few of them. I think I read there's like 80,000 kids in a 60 million population in Britain. That's not many people around the world, around Britain, that's actually connected to people that understand, because we're so secluded and we're kept secluded away from people that we don't know how to connect. So I'm trying to build a page that have a whole load of people that understand what we've gone through. None of the professionals that I've gone through have been able to understand, so I just didn't connect with them or want to give them anything, because it's the same old story, same old stuff. You've got anger issues, you've got this, you've got that. It's like, well, I know I've got
great platform for you.
Do you understand why I've got them? No, so your words, your
great platform that you are building, so well done. But as we're talking about this, my next question was how was your experience with your allocated professionals? You know, we had social workers, key workers in children's homes, etc., youth workers. So, I mean, did you find it meaningful? Was it meaningful for you?
Not for me, no. I've not got minus the 2 social workers. I haven't had any good experiences with any professionals in any way, shape, form, whether they be foster carers, respite carers, social workers, health professionals, mental professionals. The place where I did see the most improvement in my mental side, because it gave me something else to really focus on, was when I joined the army. It was only then when they gave me something to really focus, something else to focus on other than I want to see my mum. Other than wanting, not knowing thing, they didn't care about that. They treat you all at the exact same. You're all at the bottom level, so you all got to do that. So no one understood each other. Everyone's on the same fields, and that's the thing that helped me change my mental health a lot was the army.
Okay, thank you. Jodie, what about you?
It's really hard because when I think about my social worker, I see her through the eyes of a child. So I felt often lied to, and I felt often like things were hidden from me. I mean, I just experienced some huge traumas. I was no longer a child, a normal child. You don't have to hide this stuff from me. And I felt that she probably didn't. We never received any mental health support or anything like that. We would just literally
left out the loop.
Yeah, and she would say obviously, you know, we've all had our behavioural issues through it. And they were going to split me and my sister up, and she would just say things like, "Oh, you need to behave, or the next one won't want to keep you," and stuff like that. And it's like, that's not. I don't really feel like that's something you needed to say. So, but she was the one constant I had. I never had multiple social workers. She was the one constant throughout the years.
But to be fair, that's a rarity in itself.
I know. Did either of you have a life story book, or was that just a thing that?
Is that the stupid thing they tried to get you fill out every 6 months?
Well, it was sort of like I wish I should have pulled it out really, but it was photos from all sorts of like, you know, the families that we'd been through, stuff like that. I'm quite grateful for it now because my memory is, I don't know about yours. My memory, part of the trauma is the memory loss. But I do remember, I should have got it out. There's a page on there, and I must have been about 5, and I said, "I wish you got hit by a lorry." This woman. But yeah, my experience with her, although I don't appreciate, and a lot of her decisions were made from her personal feelings, not what was best for us. Certain foster carers she didn't like, so we couldn't stay with them. And they turned out to be the nicer of the lot. So yeah, I feel like.
What council did you run by? I
believe. So I'm Bedford, Leighton Buzzard, but I was from Leighton Buzzard, and I believe it was done Bedford or Borough Council or
Central Bedfordshire, I think.
That's the one, yeah.
I think it's quite a thing to know, mention these places. I was done up by Cardiff, where I got moved all the way from Chepstow, which is right on the Welsh border, all the way round to the other side to Fishguard, and everywhere in between I basically lived and had to go through foster. But my experiences with Cardiff were dreadful. I've also got experiences through my own kids with Wiltshire Council as well, social services, and I find their social services standards are absolutely dire. And I was just wondering if it's just the same case as to where you're from and where he got.
I'm part of the Luton Borough Council. Now it has changed because I went on to working with young people who were leaving care. I did notice whilst I was there that half of the things wasn't provided for me at the time of when I was a child. But I think I'm kind of with you, Jodie, in terms of, you know, I did have a lot of social workers. So my relationship with professionals there was just no trust. And like you said, there was moments where they kind of withheld so much information. And I think at that time where I was really confused, the truth was the most important thing for me because it enabled me to prepare myself that somebody else couldn't come and do for me. So my next question from that is, what were your positive experiences in being cared? I mean, for me, I think the groups that I was able to access, young people activities that I was able to go on to, especially during school holidays, I was able to go on like camping, various different activities, and meet professionals who really cared about young people. And as far as I'm aware, there is still that kind of organizations that are still running. But you know, please feel free to share yours. What was your positive experiences, do you think?
Do you want to go first, Alex?
I think
You know,
Alex is
I
trying
think
to
Struggling.
he's trying to dig really deep.
Yeah. Okay, I'll jump in quickly. Obviously my mum and dad, I eventually got adopted, so I'm very grateful for them. They really did support me. Well, once I was adopted, and we, you know, and my birth mum got really ill, and they managed to arrange for us to be reunited, and they really have supported me through the years in education. I was an absolute arse of a teenager, and they still stuck by me. Um, and I would say, you know, meeting other young people in care as well. I did one of the foster homes that I was in, the cousins were fostered as well. So I met lots of other young people in care. And I would say for me, it's given me a total different perspective on what love is, having been adopted by some amazing people. And, you know, they always say, you know, family's not blood. Well, I believe that. And
I agree.
it's not turned me bitter. In fact, it's
Mhm.
made me, I feel like the love that I give to somebody is completely genuine and completely without, you know, limits. Like I just give love, and it's not, do you know what I mean? I can't explain it, but it has,
Yeah.
I think I get what you mean, but
A form of love. A new
through
form.
my experiences, I think I feel love in a wholly different way. I didn't receive any as a child.
yeah,
I find it hard as an adult to express any of those kind of emotions. I'm literally the flip reverse of what you are when it comes to that side of things. I don't trust easy. I don't love easy. It's a wholly different reverse. Positive. I think probably the last set of foster carers that I lived with, I actually spent most time with. I spent about 3 years with them. They did eventually get me in contact and to see my mum when I was around about 14. I was 9-year reunion. Um, that went on until I joined the army, and then when I was in the army, the dynamics of the relationship between a very small relationship I had with my mother changed very big. So I don't actually speak to my real mother nowadays. It's kind of ironic from the childhood. Um, Positive experiences was probably the last foster carers that I had. I still speak to them now. I do regard them as probably the closest thing to family.
Amazing.
Like myself, I don't do think about the bloods and stuff like that. I've got a stepchild who calls me dad, and he's my son. Been here for about 6 years.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I'm a bit cautious of the time. So my next question would be to you is what would you say, or what would you advise your younger self that was in care?
What could you advise it? Mine was so violent, and all well, I'd probably say to him is swing back earlier. It took me until about 11 years old to start swinging back and start dealing out some of the stuff that I was receiving. The only thing I could say to myself is swing back earlier.
Yeah.
But that would possibly alter me even more, because it would have been even more violence, because things would have changed. When I started swinging back at 11 years old, things changed then, because I was able to swing. I stood on my own 2 feet, and the beatings went on to the other side. They'd started, I'd finish it, and hence why a whole lot more moves went in from 10, 11 years old until I hit the last social workers, foster carers I was with.
How are you, Jodie?
I would say lean into it, lean into your emotions, express how you feel, communicate. I still struggle with it so hard now because I was so terrified of expressing myself in case I got moved or whatever, that I think just express yourself, tell your needs, tell your wants. You still have a say in care. So if you're not happy, speak up. If you're being abused, speak up. Don't hide it. And lean into the opportunities. We speak about the negative, but again, like you said, there are opportunities that do come up. Lean into those, take them. Education, activities, take them. You'll find something that you love doing. Yeah, I would really, yeah, but my biggest thing would be communicate how you feel.
Yeah. I think, yeah, I'm with you, Jodie, with that one. You've taken a lot of the things that I would suggest. And my next question was, what would you recommend and suggest or advise to people who are in the care system or who have left care system? But I think you both covered quite a bit of that. Lastly, I would like,
I would say for that one, I would say for them to try and find someone that can understand them, because it's so hard finding someone that can understand you, truly understand you, which is the hardest part about life and growing up in care, where you don't get many people around you that can say stuff and you can go, yep, okay, I got that one.
yeah, feel that safeness with is quite rare to come about with professionals. Yeah. My last question to you both is, how do you feel it's impacted you in your later life being in care? I think for me, there was so many stages I had to go through to unlearn and unpick myself in order for me to heal, because I do feel like it was a big part of something I needed to heal from. So today, where I stand now, I could really look back on that journey and say, I've healed a lot. But there's still probably
Still healing.
that still is healing.
For me, it impacts sort of, again, I'm still not very good at communicating my needs or communicating how I feel, which has impacted some relationships that I've had, and families and friendships and romantic relationship. I just am terrible at so scared and terrified of people losing people. And I'm a bit of a people pleaser, I think, as well, because I just want them to stay so badly. I'm absolutely terrified. So I have put up with a lot of
a big rejection syndrome, similar to what I
terrified of it.
around so much.
It's so traumatic when somebody.
Sorry, you're both talking at the same time, so I can't really pick up. Sorry, what was she saying? Jodie, have you finished?
I was just saying, like, it's almost traumatic when somebody sort of leaves your life, and learning to deal with that, like you said, rejection or the loss of somebody. And for normal people, it'd be like moving on and whatever. For me, it's quite a very traumatic process because it does dig up a lot of those old emotions. And again, I'm not very good at expressing that either. So yeah, I would say that would be the biggest impact, is not communicating very well and not dealing with people leaving. And I have put up with things that I shouldn't do because I'm so attached to some people.
Thank you. Alex, do you have something to add on this?
I think it's impacted me to be a hard person, hard emotionally, physically, the whole way around. So I don't connect with people emotionally at all. I've been with my partner for 6 years, and it took 3 years for me to propose to her, just because I wanted to ensure that we're still not married yet, and we're 3 years on from proposal. With my own children, I'm hard on them. I don't invest heavily emotionally because I don't know how. I've never had that emotional connections as a child, never had the cues to pick up on, so I've grown up a lot harder internally, I suppose. So it's made me a harder adult, and it's I know I'm a hard person, because of the experiences I've gone through, but I think I'm massively set in the ways I am because of it, and
It's a defense
try
mechanism.
and change basically most of who I am because of the experiences was mostly what I've gone through. It's tough. It's just tough to be able to try and break some things, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to break it. I have intentionally chose to block out a whole lot of my childhood because of a lot of violence in there. And I do have a black pit in the top of my head intentionally because I don't want to think of my childhood, because if I think about it too much, I don't know half the places that I've been, because I've been to that many. I couldn't tell you names of people's schools because there's been that many.
Yeah.
So I don't have a memory of a childhood except for mostly bad stuff. And I don't think that's a good thing for anyone to really have to go through. I didn't have anyone to understand me, talk to, or anything like that. I went into care with my sister. I had a younger brother and a younger sister stay at home where I got took from. That thing alone was extra tough as well.
Yeah, I think it's never too late to ask for support and get support. There are so many services out there now that are willing to support, and we are all on a journey, and we are on a journey to heal as well. So if you guys do need any support, Jodie, I want to really highlight something you said to me outside of this podcast, is that you really do see the people who have been in care as a brotherhood and a sisterhood, and that is the amazing part of it, is that we all have that connection regardless of whether we've met yet or not.
That's down to the understanding, because we all understand what each of us have gone through. It may not have been to the degrees it's understanding.
I literally consider people in care, they are my brothers and sisters. That's it.
Yeah.
Like, we are, to me, that's
a
that.
family unit,
I don't see it any other way.
Yeah. But on that great note, I'm going to say thank you so much for being involved in the Impossible Talk podcast. Thank you for sharing your experiences. I know that it wasn't easy for us to talk about that, but I'm so excited to see how we can use this platform to raise awareness for many, many, many people out there that have experienced a foster care system and have had similar experiences. So thank you guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's been my kind of pleasure.